Explain that to us. What is relationship anxiety?
It's just suddenly you're questioning everything and we're thinking about the future and how is it going to align, and it starts to create this spiral of chaos in your mind. No one wants to get divorced, right? Like, I don't think anyone goes in being like, this is what's going to happen.
That's something I'm not going to say to my wife ever. You know what I mean?
This narrative of I should leave, or this isn't good enough, or there's someone better for me. Anxiety, as it fills your mind, it really starts to bring way more distance and connection, and it starts building up a case as to why this person isn't as good as your ex, or as someone who could be this fantasy person that, like, this, the grass is always greener, right? Like, it's like this person of, well, if this isn't good, then someone else will be better.
Relationship anxiety. Should you stay or should you go? It's a question many people ask today, and there aren't a lot of places to turn to for answers. But today, we have some answers. Our guest today is a marriage and family therapist, and she specializes in coaching individuals who deal with relationship anxiety. She also hosts a podcast with her husband, Matthew, called Connected and Committed. Please welcome JoyRossignol. Joy, thanks for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
Sure. We had some scheduling conflicts. We're both busy people, so I'm really glad that we were able to link up. I find myself saying that a lot. Everybody's so busy now,
I
right?
know, I
You
know,
know?
which is kind of a bummer, but since
Yeah,
it's adulting, I don't know.
yeah. But we made it happen. So,
Yes.
um, so I'm glad you're here. We probably have some idea of what relationship anxiety is. I've never really heard it defined until I started looking at your platform and the things that, your content and what you teach and the services that you provide. So explain that to us. What is relationship anxiety?
So relationship anxiety is when you're in a relationship, but you're feeling a lot of, you're overthinking, you're having a lot of doubts, you're questioning everything. And for the people that we work with, it's typically you're in a healthy relationship and it doesn't really make sense. So there's nothing that's like this red flag that's causing anxiety, or there's something that's really negative happening that's making it, or you overthink. It's just suddenly you're questioning everything and we're thinking about the future and how is it going to align, and it starts to create this spiral of chaos in your mind. And a lot of people who experience that, because we hear a lot of times in, like, when we're talking about relationships and love on social media or in the movies, it's like we knew right away and it was just so peaceful and like this beautiful, like, butterfly experience. But when you don't have that, you think something is wrong. And I think that's where the dissonance comes from and the disconnect comes from. And that's where a lot of people have that anxiety.
I want to totally be transparent for a second and open with everybody in that I've never heard relationship anxiety defined, but I think early on in my marriage with my wife, I had it.
Mm.
Because, like, in those first few years of marriage, everything's so new.
Yep.
And, I'd never been married before. She'd never been married before. So it was just such a new experience. You don't know what to expect. And, you butt heads, right? Like two
Mhm.
people living in a house, two sinners living in a house. You're going to
Sure.
butt heads. You're going to get on each other's case. It happens. You live together. And like sometimes when we'd get into like little, you know, seemingly minor conflicts in my head, my own insecurities at that time, because I was younger, was like, oh, is this gonna like, is this gonna end in divorce? Like, I would
Mhm.
worry about stuff. And I remember she'd be like, will you calm down? Like, we're not getting a divorce. Like, relax. But I mean, I guess that was a form of relationship anxiety, and I never really
Mm.
put that together. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? Yeah.
totally.
Yeah.
I think that that's where a lot of the stuff that comes up is we are, again, if it's not as maybe smooth as we thought it would be or should be or expected to be, we have a lot of expectations that show up for
Yeah.
whatever reason, because we like to dream and because we see things, and you're a kid and like, once I get married it's going to be exactly like this thing, or once I meet my future person it's going to be so like electric and all of this stuff. And the thing is that it's so harped on every single, I mean, it's what sells, like entertainment. If you watch any movie, you watch any reality TV or anything, that's what it sells.
Yeah.
And then it really can feel very disappointing and scary to feel like, oh, maybe this is not it. And what if this is what the reality is? And what if it ends up being a bad marriage and divorce? And no one
Mhm.
wants to get divorced, right? Like, I don't think anyone goes in being like, this is what's going to happen. I think we all
Yeah.
want to be married forever, but divorce
Mhm.
does happen. And I think it freaks people out to be like, it needs to be a one and done, which I get that. I think it's normal to want that.
Yeah.
But that there's fear around like, and I need a date so perfectly and everything needs to line up so well, or else it could lead to that.
Yeah. And you bring up something interesting, and it's the idealism piece, right? So
Mhm.
it's what we see in, movies and TV, and now like social media, for, for younger people that have grown up in that. I grew up without social media, so I remember a world prior to all that stuff,
Yeah,
which I argue sometimes might have been a better world, but hey, we
sure.
won't, that's another episode. But I mean, like, we see all that, right? What do we see on social media? We see the best of everybody's. We see all the wins, right? We don't. Now, there's some people that are vulnerable and they'll put out their hurts and their losses, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. I mean, I welcome that if that helps somebody grieve with a situation or deal with circumstances that they're having to go through at that time. But the majority of what we see on socials is not real life, particularly with a lot of influencers, right? Like, they're not putting their negative stuff out there. So they're putting the good stuff out there. So what are people doing? They're watching men and women, husbands and wives, boyfriends and girlfriends, and all these wonderful things that, the
Mhm.
boyfriend might be doing. And then the
Right.
woman watching that might feel inadequate when she doesn't realize that the guy on that social media channel probably did something to upset his wife 3 weeks ago, just like every other. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
it
yeah.
happens. Like I said, like, people butt heads, but we get stuck in this like unhealthy pattern of idealism that all like there's so many outside influences that I think taint reality inside our
Mhm.
heads. Does that make
Mhm.
sense?
Yeah, 100%. And yeah, I think that there it kind of is. I follow there's this YouTube channel that I follow that talks about like kind of the more intricacies of YouTube and not YouTube but social media, and like people, this is like people's jobs in a sense. Like if they're social
Mhm.
media influencers, it's their job to entertain you. So we are seeing like, oh, my husband brought me with 1,000 roses and like did all the stuff for me on Valentine's Day, and you're on Valentine's Day and your husband gives you like a flower and makes you dinner. You're like, well, he didn't do these huge
Yeah.
things. It's not normal. Like it should be better. And it's like that's they're paid to entertain you. And I
Hmm.
think people realize that it's like this is what is normal. Social media definitely colors what we see as reality, and it definitely triggers our anxiety even more.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. You have said on your platform that anxiety not only affects us, but it affects the people around us. I'd love to get more of your take on that.
Yeah. When so I to give you some background, like I experienced anxiety when I was dating my now husband, and my husband had some too. So we both had anxiety while we were dating. And when you are really anxious, like it completely changes your perception of reality. And so you stop seeing your partner as a person and you start seeing them as how they're actually pleasing you in a sense. So it's like if my anxiety is really focused on, I don't know, let's just say he isn't attractive enough. I don't know. Or it's like focusing on their attraction. Like, is he
Yeah.
just as attracted if I thought he was? Like, am I not feeling the good feelings or whatever? Every single time I'm with this person now, I'm testing him unintentionally, but it's like, oh, do I find him attractive today? What is he wearing? Is he saying the right things? If there's conflict, then it's like, okay, it's feeding into this narrative of I should leave, or this isn't good enough, or there's someone better for me, rather than actually seeing the person as who they are. And so anxiety, as it fills your mind, it really starts to bring way more distance and connection, and it starts building up a case as to why this person isn't as good as your ex, or as someone who could be this fantasy person that like this the grass is always greener, right? Like it's like this person of, well, if this isn't good, then someone else will be better. Like this person will fill all of my needs and there'll be no conflict. And so after a while, it really starts to impact a relationship. Like, and I think as we were dating too, I was the person on the other end really getting that impact of like, okay, I'm noticing your distancy. I'm noticing that you're not acting normal, but when we're good, we're really good. But when you're really anxious, you're like a different person. And that really impacts like your partner for one. And I think your partner is probably the biggest person who gets that impact. And I think that maybe the community around us can trigger it depending on like who's around you, but your partner stops. being the person you're seeing and starts being the person that you're like not objectifying, but you're scrutinizing every single thing and being very critical of that person super unintentionally.
Do you think men are more those who struggle with opening up about their anxieties? Like like men always, not, not always, but traditionally a lot of men, we all know, have this hard exterior, I'm good, I got this under
Sure.
control. They don't like showing vulnerability. And I've often said that it takes a real man to show vulnerability,
Right.
right? Whereas we see a lot of the opposite these days, and not even these days, just traditionally how men are wired, I think. Do you think men who deal with anxiety may bottle that up and not want to admit that to their partner to try to get over that? Have you encountered that at all?
I think I've noticed actually both. I think
Really?
there's a lot of shame that comes up when you're dealing with this because this feels like this is not normal. Like what things that I'm thinking about my partner are not okay, and I
Hmm.
don't know what to do about it, but I can't share it with them because it's going to push them away naturally because some
Yeah.
of these thoughts are really and I tell you people all the time, when you're having anxious thoughts, it's not you, it's your anxiety. And
Hmm.
so when they're having these like really like anxious thoughts about your partner, it feels so horrible being like you're questioning their attractiveness. You're thinking like they're not that attractive today. Like what's going on? And you're
Yeah.
scrutinizing them and all these things. Just one example. But you start to feel a lot of shame about it because you're like, I really care about this person. It's not like it's this person I hate. Like I love this person, but I'm
Yeah.
having all these thoughts about them. I don't know what to do about it. And I feel like if I share it with people around me, like my friends who aren't experiencing anxiety, they're gonna be like, well, you should leave. But I don't want to
Yeah.
leave, but I don't know what to do. So it's a super isolating feeling. And eventually they explode and they just like, "Ugh, I break up because I don't know what to do anymore. And you
Yeah.
get relief and it feels like peace, but then it's like, well, I feel good, but it kind of creates this cycle of continuing to do this so you deal with what's actually going on.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, so like in a chronic sense, anxiety, like it's not rational, right? It's
Right.
perfectly natural for us to experience it. I think every human being under the sun experiences it at some point in their lives.
Right.
Um, but and there's different ones, right? Like there's fear of public speaking, being nervous
Right.
before a first date, those kind of things. So anxiety in a chronic sense, it's not rational. I think we can both agree with that. It's natural. I think we all experience it. There's different reasons for it, whether it's just going on a first date, doing a business presentation, fear of public speaking, whatever it is. But do you think chronic, like ongoing anxiety is maybe like a lie that we tell ourselves over and over again?
I do. I really do. I think that when it comes to anxiety, um, as you're saying, there is this like not normal. There's a level that can just be like a part of your day to day, you know,
Mhm.
like me being nervous about being on this podcast, for example, like that. You had some anxiety for sure. Um,
Which is not evident at all, by the way.
Thank you. I'm glad. Thank
Yeah.
you.
No, like you're like sailing through this.
um, but when it is chronic, I do believe there is a lie that we're telling ourselves. Even if I'm just trying to think of an example, but if we're talking about it in the relationship anxiety sense, there is some lie I'm telling myself about marriage, about myself, about my partner, about love that is influencing this chronic level of anxiety that I'm experiencing. So even for some of my clients, there is this lie of maybe they experienced divorce growing up and it was really traumatic for them and they've not seen very many healthy relationships in their life. Their belief potentially is going to be that like like marriage isn't in the cards for me and I'm never going to experience this desire that I have. And so every time I'm in a relationship I find something wrong or I'm afraid they're going to leave me, so I kind of like have this like overall fear. And it's when we're looking at it in the basic level, it's thinking like I'm having these thoughts, and so I'm having these intrusive thoughts are getting in my head, and I'm spiraling. But in reality, it's the deep lie that we're believing that's influencing the anxiety in the first place. And so when it's that level, there's
Mhm.
something I'm believing that is keeping this anxiety going. There's some truth I'm thinking that's in there that's allowing the thoughts to manifest itself the way that it is.
So how hard is it to uncover that lie? Because I know you work as a therapist and you've probably seen this over and over again because it's so prevalent. Sounds like it's
Yeah.
prevalent in your practice. So how hard is it to uncover those lies? Do people bury those?
I think so. I really think a lot of it is unconscious. because we don't realize that it's there until maybe someone reveals it or we do some work to understand that it's there. And then once it's known, then it takes a while to unlearn something you've believed for a very long time. And for some people, it's like, oh my gosh, that's it. That makes sense. I believe that that's been a lie in my life for a very long time. I've gotten breakthrough from that, and now I can like move past it. And so it kind of just depends. But I mean, for some people who've like, I mean, my lie, one of them was just like, I'm not worthy of um, someone pursuing me or loving me. And I think I've had like relationships in the past where it's felt that way or that I'm replaceable. And so, and that's still like not in relationships anymore, but that's still a lie that I have to continuously work at being replaceable, even in friendships and all these things. Even if there's no evidence that shows that, there's still something that tells me like, okay, like this could happen. And so I think that's one of those things that, and looking back to where that came from, we can see years back of one of my first friendships will say that showing up. But I think that I didn't realize that was something in my life for a while
Hmm.
until sometimes relationships uncover it, where it's like, okay, something is happening. Like everything was fine, and then suddenly I'm freaking out. What is going on? This
Yeah.
relationship is really good, and then for some people they don't realize that it's not the relationship, it's them, and so they break
Hmm.
up. But for people who might be like, this is happening in every relationship, it's once I figure out that it's me, I take time to realize that's the case, then it starts to start that journey of uncovering what that is.
Hmm.
And for some people they can do it themselves. It's like, I'm what's going on, this is happening over time, what am I believing, okay, I think this is what's going on, this could be related to
Yeah.
that, and easy. But for some people it's really locked in there, so like I really don't know what it is, it has to be, it's me, but I don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
Then it's like the journey of uncovering that, and then it's a journey, it's a process for some
Yeah.
people, not for everyone.
Yeah. And I can't help but think, you correct me if I'm wrong because you're the professional here, but I can't help but think it's a lot of it's our past, right? So
Yeah.
we encounter the longer we live, the more we encounter different people, and they're not always nice people. We've all met people that were not nice to us.
Yeah.
A lot of the times you've met more people who aren't nice than that are nice, and just stuff sticks with you, right? Like
Mhm.
even from like the schoolyard, like just the social struggles of kids and of children, and the bullying part of what people deal with growing up, and maybe like daddy issues, mommy issues, whatever it is, family issues, all those dynamics come into play. And it's like some of that, I think some of those things can leave scars for people,
Yeah.
and then they walk around, and I think those things might help develop some of those lies that people tell themselves. Do you think that?
Yeah, for sure. And I think too, it's not even like, let's just say three people experienced the same bully in elementary school. We
Yeah.
all get three different things from that, and depending on like your perceptive of yourself and what people
Mhm.
may have told you growing up, that either is going to bounce off you and be like, okay, that wasn't me, that was this person who's insecure, or it's going to be like, yep, everyone's against me, I've always thought that. Like, it just depends on your perception of your reality and what you perceive from that situation. And
Yeah.
so there, it very much comes from growing up, and also it can come from things that feel like a pattern for you. So maybe I've had a great childhood. For me, I had a great childhood, but it was
Mhm.
more like outside relationships of
Mhm.
friendships, or you can be great up until you start dating, and then you're like, oh, okay, I felt all these things, but now it seems like every time I'm in a relationship, it doesn't last. Like they break up with me after a certain amount of time.
Yeah.
Then you start believing like maybe I'm just not good enough. Like something is wrong with me, inherently wrong with me, and then it starts becoming this thing. So it starts to it's once the lie all the lie needs to do is connect to you and connect to your core belief system, and that's it. And
Yeah.
so it just depending on what you perceive from a situation, and it takes root that starts to form that lie, and we'll call it like a thought tree. Dr. Caroline
Hmm.
Leaf talks about it that way. I love her and I love her work, but
Hmm.
talking about how thought trees are developed in our brain. And so all it takes is really like one thing to kind of like plant in your mind to create a whole thought tree and a whole thought system and a whole core belief system.
Yeah.
And so depending on what happened and the time period of it will determine when that kind of places itself in you.
Interesting. This stuff evolves. Like medicine evolves, therapeutic approaches evolve over time. Do you think we're better equipped to deal with some of these things now than we were 30, 40 years ago. I mean, there was a time, my father dealt with like, some pretty rough times during the Second World War because he was a European immigrant, and they didn't have like PTSD. They didn't like identify things as what clearly he had. But like I remember growing up in the 80s, that wasn't a thing. Nobody talked about that, right? It's like, my dad's he's a little on the edge sometimes. But, in hindsight now, just with everything that we've come to understand about how things affect us mentally and emotionally, there's a lot of pieces to that puzzle that I could never have put together as a 12-year-old kid. But do you think we're getting better at piecing those puzzles together in our minds than we were 30 or 40 years ago?
Yeah, I will say that there's a lot more at our disposal. Like we have a lot more access to things. Even
Yeah.
like, oops, sorry. Even we'll say like GPT. I always say GPT. Like
Yeah.
even if it's not like take it or leave it, like it can give
Yeah.
you good information and help in some ways. It can help you find your
Yeah.
purpose, to be honest.
Oh yeah.
And I think that there's a lot of people on social media where you can get like you can go online and find a internet therapist. You know what I mean? Like there's so many
Yeah.
options that
Mhm.
definitely help you figure out like this is what I'm experiencing, and I'll say that that's helpful.
Yeah.
Um, and
ChatGPT
also,
is my intern, Joy.
yeah,
That's
oh
my that's
great,
my
yeah,
intern.
same
Yeah.
virtual assistant,
Yeah.
which is great. And I think
Yeah.
that
Grok's good
there,
too. Have you tried Grok?
I haven't. My friend
Grok's
talked to me
really,
about it, and I was like,
yeah,
I
they're
need one
both
at a
great.
time.
They're both
Really?
great. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
I should check it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so I'll say we have a lot more access, and then also a lot more information that can be unhelpful at times, depending
Yeah.
on what you are experiencing. But I think for the most part, I'm sure we have way more access to things that can be helpful for us, at least when it comes to the mental health space. Because before it was more stigmatized, like ooh, mental health, like it's not that. We would just kind of institutionalize you and call it good
Yeah.
rather than actually figuring out what's going on.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I agree. I think we seem to be better equipped to deal with a lot of that stuff now over different periods in history past. Um, your parents have been married 40 plus years. I saw that you put that on an Instagram post that you shared, and I think that's amazing. What have you learned from watching them all your life? And have you tried to incorporate any of that into your own marriage?
Totally. I mean, I admire my parents so much. I think that they both come from divorced families, so the fact that they've been able to change that for themselves now for us has been, I mean, that's a big deal.
Hmm.
Um, I would say that one thing is they've always they're best friends. They talk all the time. They communicate everything. They've always been that case. It's I've never, even as like my teenage time trying to like, I could never pit them against each other. It'd be like nope, like
You tried?
I'd just be like, well, dad said this. Like, no, she didn't. Like, okay, whatever. But like, like they're just very much a team, and they've
Yeah.
always been that case, always been that way. And even now, if I share one thing with them, like, they're going to tell each other because I think that that's good. And I'll get a call from my dad a couple of days later after talking to my mom, being like, hey, I talked to your mom. Like, they've
Mm.
always just prioritized that, and they've always just prioritized like being very intentional and something my dad I remember asking my dad this I don't remember when I asked him this but I remember asking him like do you think like mom, I don't know, like what do you think about mom, like you've been married for so long, I'm curious, like do you like was there anyone, I don't know what I was asking him, but I remember
Mhm.
him saying like they're like obviously we get older, like looks change, all the things, like I think your mom is so beautiful, but like the one thing that's always going to keep us here is the fact that we've built so much history together, we've gone through
Mhm.
5 kids, we've gone through so much life that
Mhm.
that's just irreplaceable, and like you're building a life with someone else and you're building history with someone else, and I think that's what keeps in my mind like I mean 40 plus years of history with someone, like how do you even change that for you can't do that, you know. um, and I remember that stuck with me of being like okay, like the person I'm marrying I'm gonna be creating memories with, but not only like good memories, it's gonna be hard things too, like we're gonna experience loss, we're gonna experience all this change, but you're experiencing that with one person and they're continuously choosing you, and I've always seen that in their marriage, like they love each other, and and it's never changed for me because they showed me too that love is a choice. It's not just this feeling that like okay, like I feel good today, so therefore I love them. Like it's just been a continuous choice that I've seen since I was born, really, until now, 30 plus years later for me, seeing them. It's just crazy to see the consistency that it's never wavered once in my mind ever. And I think that that's just, I'm always going to take that in my marriage and hopefully pass it down to my future kids and their marriages too.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I mean, we haven't been my wife and I haven't been married quite that long, but I totally get that that investment of time and just how well you know each other and how close you become and the similarities and the things you share in common. And it's hard to imagine. I know people have to do it. I know things happen. I know sometimes, sometimes life can end abruptly for somebody. Like we don't know the future, right? So, not to sound morbid, but I'm just trying to be real. Like these things, these are part of life, right? Like you said, we're going to experience losses, but it's hard for me to imagine doing that again and it being as great as it has been for me.
Mhm.
Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like
Yeah.
it's and I think I wrestle with some of the stuff you were talking about, like what's she doing with me? You know what I mean? Like I don't know. There's this like because there's so much for me. There's so much good that she brings to my life. I feel like undeserving of it sometimes,
Mhm.
oftentimes, because I don't think I do deserve it. But it's such a blessing. And, on the flip side of that, a problematic marriage can just like rip you apart
Yeah.
inside, right? Like I think we've all seen that just in our lives, just marriages that are rough and people that break up and how that, I've heard people describe that a divorce as like an amputation, right?
Mm.
Like it's such a difficult thing for people to deal with, and yeah, it's awesome that you've been able to witness that firsthand. I had parents that were married like a really long time, like 50 years. They had some of what you were sharing, but like there was some weird times too. Like I didn't have like this perfect little and I'm not implying that with you. I'm
Sure.
not saying you had a perfect little family. I'm not saying that at all. But I there's definitely things I saw in my parents' marriage that I don't want happening in our marriage, in
Mhm.
my wife and I's marriage, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So like I learned things like not to do
Sure. Yeah.
growing up around my parents, and I love my parents. I'm not throwing
Yeah.
them under the bus. They're both gone, but they're not with us anymore. But yeah, I think some of those were like lessons. Like, okay, that's something I'm not going to say to my wife ever.
Sure. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Totally.
So I think there can be good and bad things with that. But no, that's awesome that you shared that. And I love hearing stories like that. I think it's very inspiring.
Mm.
You know.
Yeah.
So talk about some of the warning signs that we may be self sabotaging our own relationships. I know we talked about like the self doubt aspect, and there's different things that can get in the way of a healthy bond with another person. But what are some warning signs that we might be doing that, just for like our listeners right now who might be struggling in a relationship of their own?
Mm. Yeah. Well, I would say it's, I know when anxiety is very loud, it's hard to see things clearly, but it's more of this part because a lot of people, there's different phases, we'll say, when the sabotaging, we'll say, starts to show up. It's either maybe it's right away in the beginning when we're like going on the first couple of dates, and then I'm every, maybe we start seeing the patterns of every time I'm on a first couple of dates, I always end it around date four for some reason. Like, why am I always
Yeah,
ending it? And why is
yeah,
no one good enough or what's going on?
yeah,
For some people, it's like I'm dating someone seriously for a while and then something starts showing up or whatever. We start talking about marriage and I freak out. Um, we have to start looking at the patterns that show up for us of is like one is this been happening every single time or is this only happening for this one relationship and if so why and when did this start showing up and I would say if there is for my clients I always have them look at what red flag or what thing have you been seeing to indicate that these thoughts are real? And for most people, they can't really pinpoint anything. It's just like this feeling they have. Like, I don't know, I just feel off. And one of the things we see on social media as well, or even entertainment, is like, you have to trust your gut, which I'm not saying, because I know for some people, yes, you do need to trust your gut because it
yeah,
could be some red flag or something is going on, which in my first relationship, which was not a healthy relationship at all. I
Hmm.
wish I would have listened to my gut, but I didn't. And then, but for a lot of the people that I've been working with, it's very much just like, honestly, everything is smooth sailing. If this anxiety wasn't here, there would be no problems, but it feels like there's a problem. And it feels like I need to like really triple check to make sure this person isn't, I don't know, maybe this person is not spiritual enough. This person's not attractive enough. This person's not, the feelings aren't there. There's something that just feels like I need to be looking at it. And
Yeah.
anxiety brings the same things over and over and over again. It's not different. And so if we are seeing that like up until yesterday, hypothetically, things were actually really good, but then now I'm like questioning everything, what changed? And
Hmm.
like I can't indicate something strong, but just I don't know, it feels off or it doesn't feel
Yeah.
as smooth as it should be. This is when the time to look inward and actually ask yourself the questions of, am I potentially experiencing relationship anxiety? And if I am, well, obviously I need to figure that out. And what is triggering this in the first place?
Hmm.
Um, because for some people, let's just say you've only had toxic relationships and now you're in one first time healthy, safe relationship. That can actually start to, like, your brain is used to the chaos. And so when
Yeah.
it's normal, it's like something is wrong. And they
Hmm.
start to scrutinize, like, this feels boring. This isn't exciting enough. This is all that. And they end something that's really good because it didn't feel good or didn't feel normal. It felt
Right.
boring or felt like I was X, Y, and Z. That's nothing with a relationship. That's so much to do with what you feel is normal and familiar. Or if you
Hmm.
grew up in chaos and now you're in something that's like steady, that
Hmm.
you don't, your brain doesn't know, that's not familiar to you. And so we can sabotage that because it's like, this is not, I don't know what this is, and I don't really know how to handle this. I know how to handle the chaos. I don't know how to handle peace and
Yeah.
like safety and like consistency. So I'm just going to end this because I'm going to find someone that's better. Um, and so we have to
That
like,
sounds awful.
I know it
Just being
does.
in, you know what I mean? Like just finding ways to end something good. Like
Yes.
what an awful pattern that sounds like.
For sure. And I think when people are in it, they don't realize it until after the fact. And
Hmm.
so what we're trying to do is help people while they're in it so they don't end something that they're going to regret and be like, dang it, that was actually, you know, I believe that like there can always be redemption if you end something that was good. You can always find someone again. Ideally, but you might always
Yeah.
go back to this relationship of like I should have just stayed here because this was actually great.
Yeah.
And so I think that it's just being able to ask the questions of when did I first start to question things, and
Hmm.
was there something that he or she did that caused me to question it, or has it just been like suddenly out of nowhere I'm questioning everything and now I don't know what to do with it? Because you
Yeah.
might be having relationship anxiety, and that's something we can actually deal with before it gets to the point of breaking up.
Yeah. Like what you're saying makes like 100% sense. And I can totally see how you see that, how that's a thing in your practice that you witness with people. But like when did we get to a place just as humans to not embrace happiness? Like, why are we unhappy with happiness? Like you pictured, you illustrated somebody's in a good relationship, things are good, so they're like not used to the chaos, so they're looking for ways to sabotage it. Like, why is it so hard to just be happy?
That is a great question, and I think that that's how powerful the mind is.
Hmm.
Like it's like we aren't it's hard to be satisfied with what's in front of you because
Yeah.
there's something indicating that something could be better if we just change this thing or if we
Yeah.
date someone else or all that. And I do think social media has a play in that. Like even
Yeah.
for I don't know if it was just because we were in lockdown for during 2020, you know what I mean, and everyone
Hmm.
was like kind of locked in, but like the during that time, everyone was just like, oh, I'm upping and going and I'm traveling and all this stuff. And then you saw all these things, and then once everyone had the clearance to travel again, the travel rate like went up significantly, and the tourism rate like went up because everyone started traveling again and like kind of infiltrating like all these places because like
Yeah.
I was putting all these places on my bucket list and I need more to like satisfy me because I'm seeing everyone else's life on social media and it seems so great. I'm just
Hmm.
sitting here doing nothing and being like that we're not used to things being mundane. And I think that that's like the reality is that's what like marriage is so beautiful and I'm so I love marriage. And also
Hmm.
like there's a lot of days where it's just like, yeah, we're in our routine and we just like, hey, like just working and
Yeah.
having dinner together and then going to bed. Like it's normal. And
Hmm.
I think that we see all these things again online where it seems like every day is like a fireworks show, or like we're doing all these crazy things and it's like
Yeah.
adventure, adventure, adventure. So, well, my life's not like that. Therefore, I need more. I need more to satisfy me now.
Hmm.
When in reality, it's like we need to be okay with things being normal and things being
Yeah.
slow and things not being like a level 10 all the time. And
Yeah.
I think that this is even the same if you ever start a business. There's a lot of days where you're just kind of putting your head grinding and doing the things. It's not really like, oh, viral moments and crazy stuff. It's very much like putting in the work. I did what I need to do and I let it go for a day and just trusting that the things that I'm stewarding will develop and compile over time.
Yeah.
But people want these fast things so much that we
Yeah.
don't let ourselves just be happy with what's happening now. And it really destroys a lot of beautiful like moments because we want something way more flashy.
Yeah, it's like they're looking for a dopamine rush like at every corner.
Yes,
It's like stop
exactly.
already. Like just chill, like relax.
Hmm.
I heard a man who was married many years somewhere in an interview saying, I have the same conversation with my wife every day, but it's always in a different way. It's like we have the same conversation 10,000 times and it's okay because we're having it differently. And like I feel like I have that with my wife. Like we talk a lot about the same things, but it still feels like a different conversation today than it did yesterday. Do you know what I
Yeah,
mean? Like
yeah,
there's those dynamics where there is that pattern of I don't like using the word monotony. I like saying consistency. So there's
mm,
consistency because monotony implies it's bad.
right.
Like yourself, I'm very happy, and it's not a it's not a bad thing. I like consistency, and I think that what I hear from a lot of people, Joy, like on those dating apps and stuff that people use today, the swipe, they don't
Yeah.
like what they see, so they just keep swiping. A lot of the times, people are swiping somebody that would probably be a good potential mate, but they're always just looking for something better, and it's like it's
Hmm.
always that constant, like you in need of that mental stimulation, like whatever that is that we're trying to find. And I feel like text made that worse. And so
Hmm.
I don't envy people that deal with that. I've just heard so many horror stories on the dating apps that people use today,
Sure.
and it makes me hopeful that they'll find what they're trying to find, but also just grateful for what I have. And it sounds like you're the same way.
Totally. Yeah. I don't, I am thankful I didn't have to use the apps. And I know that people do find people and all the things, but
Yeah,
unfortunately, a lot of really great people are, it's like they're looking for something right away. And like I had even
yeah,
a friend say that she was on a date with a guy, first date, and he after that like ended it because he's like, well, I just didn't feel like this like spark right away. I'm like, what do you mean? Like, you know what
yeah,
I mean? Like, what are you needing to on your first date? Like we're in the first date, we're all awkward and uncomfortable. We don't know
yeah,
each other. You know what I mean? Like, why would
yeah,
I expect to feel something right away? I'm freaking out.
yeah,
Like that
yeah,
doesn't make sense. But I don't know. It's I'm hoping people can continue to hear more things like these conversations where they're like,
yeah,
okay, this actually is normal to not feel something right away, or it's normal to like it to feel take some time and build
yeah,
something that is really beautiful over time, not like the moment we knew right away. Some people
yeah,
do, great, but that's not as normal as people think.
yeah. I agree. You've said in the past, I've seen you say that the presence of anxiety is not the absence of peace. And that really stuck out at me when you said that. Can you unpack that for us? What did you mean
Sure.
by that?
Yeah. So, um, a lot of the times we are specifically, honestly, specifically with uh, some clients who are like maybe more having like some faith and stuff. We hear this thing where it's like if it's supposed to be, you're gonna have like perfect peace. Like it should be like there's all of it's like there's nothing ever gonna have any of that. But the reality is, when you have anxiety, the peace is not that's not doesn't make it. That's not where that is. Like you're gonna have a lot of like um, kind of like chaos in your mind, but doesn't mean that peace isn't there. You know what I mean? I do believe that peace comes with like actually like choosing that too. And also when we just because anxiety is there does not mean peace isn't there. And so I don't know. I feel like there's this because we have this feeling, and if anyone has ever had anxiety, again, everyone has had it to some level, but having like a
Hmm.
lot of anxiety, it is really overtakes you, and it feels very like overwhelming, and you're like kind of this doom, like this is not going to go away until X, Y, and Z happens. And so, but the thing is that doesn't mean, and I know that's hard to hear, but it doesn't mean that you're in a bad place or that you're in the wrong relationship or that something is actually wrong. There's just way more internally happening.
Yeah.
And so if we're able to, again, figure out what is happening here and understand that peace, we'll say, peace comes. I do
Yeah.
believe peace is something we all can have, but peace will come once we figure out what's happening here. Hopefully that motivates people to actually figure out what's happening in order to get that peace. But I think that most people are like, if there is not any peace, therefore it is wrong, period, no matter what it is. I'm trusting my gut, and my gut is saying something is wrong.
Yeah.
When in reality, it's like your gut can be activated, we'll say, because there's something happening that is triggering you in this relationship. Does not mean it's a relationship. It does not mean it's whatever this thing is. It could just be that you are triggered, and that we need to figure out how to silence that trigger and manage that anxiety before we get the quietness that peace does bring.
Yeah.
And so I think that they're not. I think that they don't coexist. It's like if I don't have peace and therefore it's bad, or it's only good if I have peace. That's not really how that works.
Yeah.
And so that's something that we have to work with clients to like unravel and be able to work through. Like, okay, it doesn't mean that it's not. Doesn't mean it's not God's will. It doesn't mean that it's not a good relationship. Doesn't mean all these things. It means that something is happening internally and
Yeah.
it's chaotic in your mind that we need to figure out.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I know we were talking off camera. We're both people of faith, and so I'm sure we're on the same page when I say that in this life we were promised trouble. There's going to be trouble in this life, right? And so that doesn't that doesn't have to negate your peace. That's just dealing with the fallen world that we live in, and knowing that can actually give you peace when you see the trouble, because it's like, okay, well, this is what, God said was going to happen. So no, I agree with you. Those things can definitely coexist, and one doesn't negate the other, you know? So you have a podcast, you and your husband, called Connected and Committed. Tell us about that.
Yes. So we actually are. In a couple weeks, the name is actually going to change. Which, if
Oh,
you follow
wow.
along, you'll get that. But
Okay.
we
So we're getting
are.
breaking news here.
Yeah, breaking news. You're hearing it first. But we actually started this podcast once we like. Again, this was taking off, and we were talking about like before it was way more general. We're talking about relationships and just kind of the whole 9 yards around that, and then we got more niche talking about relationship anxiety specifically, and which is why we want the name to reflect that. But our podcast is all about talking about different like relationship anxiety. We have people on our podcast who they had relationship anxiety and like testimonies about that and their story around that and their journey around like figuring out what happened. We have past clients on there. We get people's Q&A questions and talking about like specific things. So we sometimes even talk about, I mean, I don't know what the audience is for your podcast, but like, for example, this show that's really big right now is The Summer I Turned Pretty. And I actually really love the show. I think it's great.
Okay.
But we are going to do an episode on that because I think there is definitely a huge topic on that conversation about like leaving someone who is good for someone who's quote unquote better. And like that's a whole conversation. But we talk about a lot of different things in relationship to that. But we always hear this concept of when you know, and I don't think that's actually true for a lot of people. And then when you don't know, you start freaking out because you're like,
Yeah.
well, I don't know, so maybe something is wrong.
Yeah.
And we're trying to quiet that noise and help people navigate how do we date really well and actually lead to marriage and lead to something more serious, even if anxiety is part of the picture. And how do we manage that? And so that is our heart for our podcast and what we do and talk about. And it's fun. We love it, and it seems to help a lot of people who are experiencing it. So
Yeah.
we're excited about it.
No, that's great. It's a great platform. And I mean, I'm not gonna put you on the spot and ask you the new name if you don't want to share it. But when you get the new links for it, like let us know. We'll put this one in the show notes. But if there's any new URLs or something, like update us on that so that anybody listening or watching can go check that out, Joy.
Totally. Yeah. Well, actually, the name I kind of low key said it, but the name is actually going to be called When You Don't Know, and it's
Okay.
dating and relationship anxiety. Like it's going to be like the subtitle. And so I think we're just gonna. I don't know if the URLs will. I probably will change, but it's gonna. We're changing that second week of September, so that'll happen.
Okay. That's
Soon
coming
after
up
Lynn's
soon.
podcast coming up, but yeah.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Well, yeah, we'll make sure to put that in the show notes. And JoyRossignol, it was really great having you on. I really appreciate you making the time. Thanks for hanging out with us today.
Totally. This was fun. Thank you for having me, and I hope you all enjoy this conversation.
And that'll do it for this episode. Drop us a comment and show us some love. We always like hearing from you guys. And shout out to our viewers and listeners in Canada, in Kenora and Quebec City. We've got some people there that are always checking us out weekly, and we're grateful. Thanks for being part of our community. And don't forget to always check out what we're up to at Mikeseapodcast.com. Until next time, bye, everybody.